Long ago, in a quiet part of Africa, there was a village surrounded by strange red soil. From far away, it looked beautiful, shining like fire under the sun. Travelers often stopped to take a handful, believing it carried luck and strength. But the people of the village never touched it carelessly. To them, the red soil was not a gift of nature, it was a warning. The elders told stories that the land was once a battlefield where thousands of men were killed in a single night. Their blood flowed into the ground, and from that time the soil remained red forever. Some believed it was only an old tale to scare children, but others whispered that something far worse was hidden beneath the earth. Every evening, as the sun sank, the soil seemed to glow darker, as if the earth itself was alive. At night, no one dared to walk across the red ground. Even the animals stayed away. Birds never landed there, and cattle refused to graze near it. The villagers believed that the soil carried spirits of the restless dead, chained below the surface, waiting for anyone foolish enough to disturb them. For generations, the people avoided digging too deep into that cursed land. They built their homes on safer ground, kept their wells away from the red field, and taught their children to fear it. Still, curiosity always lived in the hearts of the young. They wondered what secrets the soil was hiding. Was it really the blood of warriors? Or was it something else, something that the elders were too afraid to say out loud? The red soil lay silent, waiting. The wind carried its dust through the village, touching doors and windows like a quiet knock. No one knew that soon the earth would open and the true horror buried inside would rise again. One summer, the village suffered a long drought. The wells were drying, and women walked for hours to fetch water. The elders warned that digging in the red soil was forbidden, but the younger men grew impatient. Water must be under there, they said. The elders are only keeping us afraid with old stories. So one morning, 5 young men carried their tools to the edge of the red field. The villagers watched from a distance, whispering and praying. The elders shouted for them to stop, but no one listened. The ground was hot beneath their feet, yet the men laughed and struck their shovels into the glowing soil. At first, nothing happened. The red dirt was soft, almost too soft, as if the earth wanted them to dig. They dug deeper and deeper, sweat pouring down their faces. But soon, strange things began to happen. A heavy smell filled the air, like rusted iron and smoke. One of the men coughed hard, his chest tightening as though he had breathed poison. Another man suddenly screamed, dropping his shovel when he felt the soil moving in his hands. The ground shook slightly, like something below had shifted. A low rumbling sound echoed under the earth, but the young men forced themselves to keep digging. They were sure they had heard running water beneath the soil. Then a loud crack split the ground. From the hole, a black fume rose like smoke from a fire. It burned their eyes, and the villagers watching from afar screamed. One worker collapsed instantly, his skin turning pale and his lips dark blue, as if the soil had stolen his blood. The others carried him back, terrified. The hole remained open, breathing out smoke. The red soil seemed to pulse and shift, as if it had awakened something deep below. The elders fell silent, their faces white with fear. They knew the seal had been broken. That night, the village felt different. The air was heavy, carrying the bitter smell of smoke and iron. Children could not sleep. Dogs barked wildly at the red field, their cries sharp and restless. Even the crickets, which usually sang after sunset, were silent. Inside the huts, people whispered about the young men who had dug the cursed soil. The boy who collapsed still lay unconscious, his skin cold like stone. His mother wept beside him, while the healer tried herbs and chants, but nothing worked. The elders said it was the punishment of the earth. As midnight came, strange sounds filled the village. It began with scratching, faint at first, like nails scraping against wood. Then the sound grew louder, coming from beneath the huts. People pressed their ears to the ground and froze. The earth was alive with movement. Something was crawling under them. Suddenly, children screamed in their sleep. They thrashed and cried, saying they saw a tall shadow standing in the fields, staring with burning red eyes. Some claimed they heard a deep voice calling their names. Parents held their children close, their hearts trembling. A group of men, brave but shaking, carried torches to the red field. When they reached it, they stopped at once. The soil, once silent, was now moving slowly, like waves of breath. The smoke from the open hole rose higher, twisting into strange shapes in the night sky. One man swore he saw a figure inside the smoke, tall, thin, and bending unnaturally, with arms too long to be human. It stood still for a moment, then melted back into the darkness. The men dropped their torches and ran back, shouting that the demon had returned. No one slept that night. The village sat awake, huddled together, listening to the earth whisper beneath them. Everyone knew the old curse was real. Something had been awakened, and it was watching. By the next morning, fear spread across the whole village. The people gathered beneath the great tree, demanding answers from the elders. The young men who had dug the soil sat in silence, their faces pale with shame and dread. The one who had collapsed still lay weak, barely breathing, as if life itself was leaving him little by little. At last, the oldest elder, a man with white hair and a shaking voice, stepped forward. He carried a carved staff, its surface marked with old symbols. The crowd grew silent as he began to speak. Long ago, he said, before this village was built, a demon walked this land. It came from the earth, feeding on human flesh and drinking the blood of warriors. The people fought it for many years, but no weapon could kill it. In the end, they captured it with chains of fire, forged by priests and bound with the blood of 100 men. They buried it beneath the soil you see before you. The crowd gasped. The elder's eyes grew wet as he continued. The red color of the earth is not from war alone. It is the stain of the demon's hunger. That land is its prison. And when you dug into it, you broke the seals. Now the demon is awake once more. Mothers clutched their children tighter. Some villagers cried out in anger, blaming the young men for their foolishness. Others trembled in fear, staring at the horizon, expecting the monster to appear at any moment. The elder struck his staff on the ground. The demon will not stop. It is hungry. It will walk again, and if we do nothing, it will devour us all. That night, the red field glowed brighter than ever. Smoke rose endlessly from the crack, and in the distance, a shadow moved across the land. The demon was no longer a story. It had returned. The days that followed were filled with terror. The village, once full of life, grew silent and cold. People walked with fear in their eyes, whispering prayers with every step. The smoke from the red field never stopped. It rose like a warning, darkening the sky even during the day. Strange things began to happen. The first sign was with the animals. Chickens disappeared from their cages, their feathers found scattered near the red soil. Goats were found dead, their bodies drained of blood, their bones shining faintly with red dust. Even the strongest cattle refused to graze near the fields. They kicked and cried if anyone tried to pull them closer. Then the curse touched the people. A young woman walking barefoot across the soil suddenly collapsed. She screamed as if something invisible was pulling the life from her body. When others carried her away, her skin looked dry and cracked, as though the earth itself had drunk from her veins. After that, no one dared to step on the soil again, even with shoes. Footprints too large for any man appeared at the edge of the village. They were deep, heavy, and filled with red dust. Every morning, new prints were found, moving closer to the huts. The elders said it was the demon walking at night, searching for its first feast. Children began waking with strange marks on their arms, long scratches that burned like fire. They said a tall shadow had touched them in their dreams. The villagers knew these were not dreams at all. The demon was already among them, feeding slowly, waiting to grow stronger. Fear grew like a sickness. Families huddled together, doors locked, fires burning all night. But fire could not stop what was rising. The soil itself had turned against them, and the curse was spreading with every breath of smoke. The village could no longer live in silence. Every night, the demon grew bolder. The footprints were no longer at the edge of the red soil. They were now in the center of the village. People heard heavy breathing outside their huts, the sound of chains dragging across the ground, and whispers calling their names. Fear turned into desperation. The elders gathered everyone beneath the great tree once more. Their faces were tired, their eyes full of sorrow. The oldest elder spoke in a trembling voice. There is only one way to chain the demon again. It was sealed with blood, and only blood can bind it once more. A sacrifice must be made. Gasps and cries spread through the crowd. No one wanted to hear those words. Some shouted in anger, refusing to give up another life. Others argued that without a sacrifice, the demon would take many more. The village split into fear against guilt, survival against mercy. That night, the demon struck again. A hut at the edge of the village was torn apart, its roof ripped away as if by giant hands. The family inside was never seen again, only their cries fading into the red smoke. The people wept, but their fear grew stronger than their grief. The next day, whispers spread of who should be offered. Some pointed to the young men who had broken the soil, saying it was their fault. Others believed a pure soul, untouched by sin, would be stronger for the ritual. Mothers hid their children, fathers clutched weapons, though they knew weapons could do nothing. As the sun sank, the red soil bled openly, drops of liquid glowing on its surface. The ground trembled with hunger. The elders stood together, faces hard with decision. They knew the sacrifice must come soon, or the demon would devour them all. The night of the final confrontation arrived. The villagers gathered at the red field, carrying torches and drums. The air was thick with smoke, and the soil glowed as if it were burning from within. Every step closer felt like walking into the mouth of death. The elders stood at the front, their staffs marked with sacred symbols. Behind them, the young men who had dug the forbidden ground knelt in shame, their eyes wet with tears. Everyone waited, their hearts pounding, as the drums began to beat slowly, echoing across the dark land. Then the earth opened. With a deafening roar, the demon rose from the soil. It was taller than the tallest tree, its body dripping with red mud that glowed like fire. Its eyes burned like coals, and chains still hung from its arms, dragging and rattling as it moved. Every villager fell to their knees in terror. The demon's voice shook the ground. It spoke no words, only a growl that sounded like thunder. The elders raised their staffs and began chanting the old ritual, but the demon only laughed, its shadow stretching over the village like a storm. At that moment, one man stepped forward. He was the eldest son of the sick villager who had first collapsed. His face was pale, but his eyes were strong. "Take me," he said, his voice steady. "Let my blood bind you again." The villagers cried out, begging him to stop, but he walked calmly onto the glowing soil. The ground opened beneath his feet, swallowing him whole. The demon screamed in fury, thrashing against invisible chains. The red field shook violently, then slowly grew still. When the dust cleared, the demon was gone. The soil closed again, silent and glowing. The villagers wept, both in grief and relief. The land was calm, but the red color of the soil remained, a warning that the demon was never truly gone. It was only waiting. The village survived, but it was forever changed. The red soil became a place of silence, feared more than ever. No one dared to walk across it, not even in daylight. Travelers who passed through asked about the glowing earth, but the villagers only shook their heads and told them to keep moving. The sacrifice of the brave young man was never forgotten. Songs were whispered about him, but no one sang them too loudly. For deep in their hearts, the people knew the truth. The demon was not destroyed, only chained again. Every night, when the wind blew across the red field, it carried the sound of rattling chains and a low growl rising from beneath the ground. The soil still glowed, not with beauty, but with warning. The curse of the red earth was never lifted, and those who dared to stand too close claimed they could still see two burning eyes staring up from the ground, waiting for the day when the chains would break again. The demon of the red soil is never gone.